I was sick, sick unto death, with the long agony. And when they were at length unbound me, and I was permitted to sit, I felt that my senses were leaving me. The sentence, the dread sentence of death, the last of distinction, accentuation, which my ears. After that, the sound of the inquisitor voices seemed merged in one dreamy, intermediate hum. It conveyed with my soul the idea of revolution, perhaps from its association in the fancy with burr of wheel. This only for a brief period, for presently I heard no more. Yet for a while I saw, but with how terrible an exaggeration! I saw the lips of the black-robed judges. They appeared to me white, whiter than upon the sheet in which I traced these words, and thin even to grotesqueness, thin with the intensity of the expression of firmness, of immovable resolution, of stern content of human torture. I saw that the decrees of what to me was fate were still issuing from those. I saw them writhe with a deadly locution. I saw them fashion the syllables of my name, and I started because no sound succeeded. I saw, too, for a few moments of delirious horror, the soft, nearly imperceptible waving of stable draperies which enwrapped the walls of the apartment, and then my visions fell upon the 7 tall candles upon the table. At first they wore the aspect of charity, and seemed white and slender angels who would save me. But then, all at once, there came a most dreary nausea over my spirit, and I felt every vibe in my frame thrill as if I had touched the wire of a galvanic battery. Like a rich musical note, the thought of what sweet rest there must be in the grave, while the angel forms became meaningless specters with heads of flames, and I saw that from then there would be no help. And then they stole in my fancy. The thought came gently and stealthily, and it seemed long before it attained such apprehension. But just as my spirit came at length properly to fear and entertain it, the figures of the judges vanished, as if magically. From before me the tall candles sank into nothingness. Their flames went out utterly. The blackness of darkness superved. All sensations appeared swallowed up in a mad rushing descent, as if the soul into Hades. Then silent, and stillness. Night were in the universe. I had swooned, but still will not say that all consciousness was lost. What of that there remained I will not attempt to define, or even to describe. Yet all was not lost. In the deepest slumber, no. In delirium, no. In a swoon, no. In death, no. Even in the grave all is not lost. Else there is no immortality for man. Arousing the most profound of slumbers, we break the gossamer web of some dreams. Yet in the second afterwards, so frail may the web have been, we remember that not we have dreamed. In the return to life from the swoon there are 2 stages. First, the senses of mental or spiritual. Second, the senses of physical and existence. It seems probable that if, upon returning from the second stage, we could recall the impressions from the first, we should find these impressions eloquent in the memories of the gulf beyond. And that gulf is what? How, at least, shall we distinguish its shadows from those of a tomb? But if the impressions of what I have termed the first stage are not, at will, recalled, yet after long intervals, do they not come unbidden, while we marvel whence they come? He who has never swooned is not he who finds strange palaces and widely familiar faces in coals that glow. Is not he who beholds floating in mid-air the sad visions that many may have not viewed. Is not he who ponders over the perfume of some novel flower. Is not he whose brain glows bewildered with the meaning of some musical cadence which has never before arrested his attention. My outstretched hands at length encountered some solid obstruction. It was a wall, seemingly of stone masonry, very smooth, slimy, and cold. I followed it up, stepping with all the careful distrust in which certain antique narratives have inspired me. The ground was moist and slippery. I staggered onward for some time when I stumbled and fell. My excessive fatigue indulged me to remain prostrate, and sleep soon overtook me as I lay. Upon arousing, I found by my side, as before, a loaf and a pitcher of water. A burning thirst consumed me, and I emptied the vessel at a draught. It must have been drugged, for scarcely I had drunk before I became irresistibly drowsy. A deep sleep fell upon me, a sleep that like of death. How long it lasted, I do not know. All this I saw indistinctly and by much effort, for my personal condition had changed greatly during my slumber. I now lay on my back, and at full length, on a species of low framework of wood. To this I was securely bound by a long strap resembling a surcingle. It passed in many convolutions around my limbs and body, leaving at liberty only my head and my left arm, to such I could extend it, by dint of much exertion, supply myself from an earthen dish which lay by my side on the floor. I saw to my horror that the pitcher had been removed. I say to my horror, for I was consumed with an intolerable thirst. This thirst it appeared to be designed by my prosecutors to stimulate, for food in the dish was meat, pungently seasoned. A slight noise attracted my notice, and looking to the floor, I saw several enormous rats traversing it. They had issued from the well, which lay just in view to my right. Even then, while I gazed, they came up in troops, hurried, with ravenous eyes, allured to the scent of the meat. From this it required much effort and attention to scare them away. They had devoured, in spite of all my efforts to prevent them, all but a small remnant of the contents of the dish. I had fallen into a habitual seesaw, or wave of the hand about the platter, and, at length, the unconscious uniformity of the movement deprived it of effort. In their voracity, the vermin frequently fastened their sharp fangs into my finger. With the particles of the oily, spicy viand which now remained, I thoroughly rubbed the bandages wherever I could reach it. Then, raising my hand from the floor, I lay breathlessly still. Observing that I remained without motion, one or two of the boldest leapt upon the framework and smelt the receptacle. This seemed the signal for a general rush. Forth from the well they hurried in fresh troops. They clung to the wood, they overran it, and leapt in hundreds upon my person. The measured movements of the pendulum disturbed them not. Avoiding its strokes, they busied themselves with the anointed bandages. They pressed, they swarmed upon me in even accumulating heaps. But the moment of escape had arrived. At a wave of my hand, my deliverers hurried tumultuously away. With a steady movement, cautious, sidelong, shrinking and slow, I slid from the embrace of the bandage and beyond the reach of the scimitar. For a moment, at least, I was free. As I arose from the attempt, the mystery of the alternation in the chamber broke at once upon my understanding. I have observed that, although the outlines of the figures upon the walls were sufficiently distant, yet the colors seemed blurred and indefinite. These colors had now assumed, they were momentarily assuming, a startling and most brilliant intenseness that gave them a spectral and fiendish portrayal, an aspect that might have thrilled even firmer nerves than my own. Demon eyes of wild and ghastly vivancy glared upon me in a thousand directions, where none had been visible before, and gleamed with the lurid luster of a fire that I could not force to imagine to regard as unreal. The room had been square. I saw that two of its iron angles were now acute, two consequently obtuse. The fearful difference quickly increased with a low rumbling or moaning sound. In an instant the apartment had shifted from its form into that of a lozenge. But the alternation stopped not here. I neither hoped nor desired for it to stop. I could have clasped the red walls to my bosom as a garnet or external piece. Death, I said, any death but that of that pit. I struggled no more, but the agony of my soul found vent in one loud, long, final scream of despair. I felt that tottered upon the brink. I averted my eyes. There was a discordant hum of human voices. There was a loud blast of many trumpets. There was a harsh granting of thousand thunders. The firewalls rushed back. An outstretched arm caught my own as I fell, fainting into the abyss. It was General Lassalle. The French army had entered Toledo. The Inquisition was in the hands of its enemies.